I'm Luke Summerhays, and I love Goomy. When Gary Gygax and Dave Amerson were creating Dungeons & Dragons in the 1970s, they drew inspiration from across fantasy. Tolkien novels, comic books, old myths and legends from around the world. They also took inspiration from horror movies and novels to give us werewolves and vampires. From H.P. Lovecraft's ever-changing Shoggoths and 1958's The Blob, they created Ooze. Tabletop role-playing games directly inspired the first waves of role-playing video games, including the granddaddy of the Japanese RPG, Dragon Quest. Dragon Quest started the trend of having a slime as the weakest, earliest monster, in the form of Akira Toriyama's adorable smiling droplet. The lowly slime became ubiquitous as the starting creature, just as the dragon remained ubiquitous as the mightiest. Goomy is a deceptively dragon-type monster, a drippy, round, pink blob with green cheeks and antennae like bunny ears. Pokemon X tells us, the weakest dragon-type Pokemon. It lives in damp, shady places, so its body doesn't dry out. And Pokemon Shield tells us, their horns are powerful sensors. As soon as Goomy pick up any sign of enemies, they go into hiding. This is how they've survived. Although Goomy does have a low spread of stats, particularly for a dragon-type monster, it also has exceptionally high special defense, relative to everything else. Pokemon Moon tells us, its source of protection is its slimy, germ-laden mucous membrane. Anyone who touches it needs some thorough hand-washing. And Pokemon Y says, it's covered in a slimy membrane that makes any punches or kicks slide off it harmlessly. A slimy membrane and sensory protrusions suggest this Pokemon is related to a slug or snail from our world, and Goomy could look like one if you stretched out its back end a little. The Japanese name, Goomy, just combines gooey and slimy, and similarly the Japanese name, Numera, is a combination of numeru, the onomatopoeia for slippery, and nura nura, the onomatopoeia for slimy. Pokemon Sword tells us, because most of its body is water, it will dry up if the weather becomes too arid. It's considered the weakest dragon Pokemon. Water isn't always a weak thing in the world of Pokemon, and Goomy won't stay quite so humble forever. Stick with it until level 40, and it can evolve into Sliggoo. Sliggoo looks a little less like a fantasy slime, and more like a real-world gastropod. Its front rises up from a stretching rear, which has a small spiral resembling a shell under the skin, as real-life slugs have instead of the large shells of their cousins, the snail. Pokemon Ultra Sun tells us, it crawls along sluggishly. The swirly protrusion on its back is filled with its brain and other organs. Other Pokedex entries talk about its equally weird sensory organs. Pokemon Y tells us, its 4 horns are a high-performance radar system. It uses them to sense sounds and smells, rather than using ears or a nose. And Pokemon X says, it drives away opponents by excreting a sticky liquid that can dissolve anything. Its eyes devolved, so it can't see anything. This melting acid is reminiscent of the Blob, or the gelatinous cube from Dungeons & Dragons, 2 classics of the slime or ooze genre. The name, Sliggoo, again combines slime and goo, this time perhaps with slug as well. The Japanese name, Numail, takes the previous evolution Numera and combines it with snail. Sliggoo isn't necessarily that snail-like when we meet it in Kalos in Pokemon X and Y, but in Legends Arceus we were introduced to the dragon and steel type Hisuian Sliggoo, which protrudes from a metallic spiral shell. Legends Arceus tells us, a creature given to melancholy. I suspect its metallic shell developed as a result of the mucus on its skin reacting with the iron in Hisui's water. Whichever version of Sliggoo one is raising, leveling up to level 50 or higher during rain will see it evolve into Goodra. Goodra stands up on 2 legs and has grown 2 arms, as well as growing out the protrusions on its head to beautiful horns. From the lowliest of slimes to a mighty dragon, and the 6th generation's entry into the club of strong, late-evolving Pokémon with stats that total 600, called pseudo-legendaries by English-speaking fans, or the 600 Club in Japan. Pokemon Y tells us, it attacks with retractable horns. It throws a punch that's the equivalent of the force of 100 pro boxers. And Pokemon Moon tells us, it gets picked on because it's meek, but then whoever teased it gets to feel the full force of its horns, and a good swatting from its thick tail. Pokemon Violet tells us, this Pokemon is uncontrollable when enraged. It rampages on and on, lashing its tail with enough power to send a dump truck flying. Alas, among these powerful monsters and dragons, Goodra has not been especially successful in the competitive scene. It has high defense and bulk, but lacks the strong attacking power a dragon is usually called upon for. It isn't much use being a bulky dragon in the generation which introduced the fairy type. Of course, being strong in battle is not all we can judge a Pokemon by. Goodra is an adorable partner. Pokemon X tells us, this friendly dragon-type Pokemon will hug its beloved trainer, leaving that trainer covered in sticky slime. And Ultra Sun tells us, it's very friendly toward people. If you grow close to it, Goodra will hug you with its sticky, slime-covered body. Don't get mad. The name combines goo and dragon, while also making sure we know Goodra is good. The Japanese name, Numulgon, just adds the suffix from the word dragon to the family's existing naming convention. Hisuian Sliggoo will evolve into the dragon and steel type Hisuian Goodra. It looks similar to its Closian counterpart mostly, but it keeps its big metal shell on the end of its tail. Legends Arceus tells us, able to freely control the hardness of its metallic shell, it loathes solitude and is extremely clingy. It will fume and run riot if those dearest to it ever leave its side. This more snail-like form makes even clearer another inspiration for the whole family. In France, on which the Kalos region is based, there is a myth of a man-eating serpent snail called Lou Carcole. In the land famous for indulging in escargot, it's no wonder there is a myth of a snail that bites back. I'm sure the Lou Carcole was a partial inspiration for Sliggoo and Goodra, and certainly informed their Hisuian counterparts. In the first Pokemon game set in Europe, with a starter trio based on a classic adventuring party, what better pseudo-legendary could there be than a lowly slime that evolves into a mighty dragon? Indeed, what better way to encapture the whole spirit of Pokemon? Music for Luke Loves Pokemon is by Jonathan Croby. Artwork for the show is by Katie Groves. If you enjoy the podcast, find out more about my other podcasts at podcastiopodcastius.org. Get in touch on Blue Sky at podcastpodcast, or support the show at patreon.com/podcastiopodcastius. I love hearing from listeners. Up next are Klefki and Phantump, so hit me up about those or any other Pokemon. And even if you don't feel like doing any of that, thank you so much just for listening. I love Goomy, and remember, I love you too.